Okay, let's see. It's interesting. We have a virgin daf on Kol Lashon tonight. At least on the Staten Island line, there was no daf for today's daf. It's the first one, so probably on the other line, on the Bar Park line, it is there. But at least it's a virgin daf for Kol Lashon on this line. We are holding on the bottom of Daf Ayin Dalid Amid Beis, and we're holding by the two dots. We are dedicated by A.B. Spry and family for the safety of our soldiers and Klal Yisrael in general. And especially for Issa Zeh ben Yuto, by Shimon Klein, Leland Ishmael Ansha ben Yehuda, Gittel by Shimon Pinchas, by Irving Fishbaum for Issa ben Razel, and Eliezer ben Razel for having Deraya ben Rivka, Meir ben Chayesara. They should have Refuah Shalema, V'seich Shar Chayla Yisrael. Another long daf tonight. We welcome in Nachman Chapler, Yitzi Muller, Mo Kushner, Yitzi Fuchs, Aaron Swade, A.B. Spry, Berish Gesseman, Stephen Holtzman, Irving Fishbaum, Marshall Castle, Eli Yudel, Eddie Chazan, Baruch Ian, back in Florida, Shalom Fogel, Mel Zachter, Ruven Pollack, Michal Philippe, Menachem Yemansky, Yitzi Padower, good to see you, Yitzi Naftali, Moshe Lehman, Rabbi Kranz, David Helfgott on Kol Lashon, Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaro.
Hey. Welcome in that bracha too.
Boy, Mark is having problems coming on these days. I think he's been working a lot of nights.
Yeah, he said he lost 30% of his body. He's been working his tail off.
Yes. Yeah. Well, some of us can understand that.
Some of us can. But I wouldn't have called it a tail.
Out of playoffs, that's why.
Boy, did they get their cans kicked yesterday. Woo-wee.
Okay. So our subject material now is Moide B'Knas V'Acha Kachbo Edim, if you're potter. An interesting subject is going to be raised tonight, and that is whether we say that there's a difference in Moide B'Knas if you're potter only if your admission makes you chayiv something. So, for example, if Marshall admitted that he stole from Abi, so that admission will cost him, because he'll have to pay the principal. So then he's potter from paying the kefil. But if after he admitted that he stole from Abi, if then he admits that he slaughtered it, maybe he'll still be chayiv, because there his admission doesn't make him chayiv anything, because he already paid the principal, and now when he admits that he slaughtered it, he's getting away with paying the extra penalty without having to pay anything. So again, maybe Moide B'Knas is only potter where his admission makes him liable to something. Like where he admitted that he stole the Abi, at least it makes him liable to pay the principal. But if he admits that, first he admits that he stole, and then afterwards he admits that he also slaughtered it, so then if it's a sheep, we're making him exempt from the extra 2 payments, and if it's an ox, the extra 3 payments. Maybe he shouldn't be exempt because his admission doesn't cost him anything. Of course, a simple nafkamina would be if Marshall admits that he knocked out the eye of his slave. So if it's only if he's liable to something, there he's not liable to anything, because if he doesn't go free, then he's not liable, because the slave is his, he doesn't have to pay him. So the question would be, would we say that might have knas potter? So that's going to be an issue tonight. That's going to be the crux of the shir. But let's see the Gemara as it develops. Gufa Amar Avun Amara might have knas v'achkach bo edim potter. If Marshall admits that he stole, but then our trusted witnesses, Irving and Yitz, comes and testifies that he stole, so he said potter, because since he admitted to it first, even though witnesses had come afterwards, he's potter. So Eisvei Rav Chisda Rav Huna, so Rav Chisda asks Rav Huna, Ma'aser Rabbi Gamliel, here's an incident with a slave. And this is with the famous slave Tavi. Remember, Tavi was a big Talmud Chacham, a righteous man, and Rabbi Gamliel would have long ago freed him and made him a regular Yid, if not that there is an Isser Aseh not to free your slave, because it says, "Olam b'hem tavaydu." You should always enslave your Eved Kanani. So he couldn't free him, but he would really love to free him. So Ma'aser Gamliel shesima es ein Tavi avdoi. He blinded, by accident, the eye of Tavi, his servant. And he was rejoicing because now he would be free and be a regular Yisrael. Matzel Rabbi Yeshua, he found Rabbi Yeshua, Amalai, and he shared the good news with Rabbi Yeshua. Do you not hear the good news that Tavi is free and he's a regular Yisrael now? Amalei Lama. He said, why? Amalei Shesimisi as Einai, because by accident I knocked out his eye. Amalei Ein Bidvarecha Klum. No, he doesn't go free. Why? We'll be going over here. Shaharei Ein Lo Yedim. You have no test, you have no witnesses. So it's only by your own admission. And if it's by your own admission, Moide B'Knas Potter. And he doesn't go free. Now that implication is that's only because there's no witnesses. But if there is witnesses, then he would be chayiv to free him, even though he already admitted. That even though he admitted to it, if witnesses come afterwards, he's chayiv, which is not like Rav Huna's psak. Amalei Shani Rabbi Gamliel. Well, by Rabbi Gamliel is different because really his admission wasn't an admission. Because the loy b'fnei bezdin oidei, when he admitted it, it wasn't in front of bezdin, so that's not considered an admission. Says, well, what do you mean, Rabbi Gamliel was not in front of bezdin? For Rabbi Yeshua of bezdin Abba, he was talking to Rabbi Yeshua, and Rabbi Yeshua was of bezdin. Says Gemara, yeah, but Rabbi Yeshua was alone. Shaloi bebezdin happy. There was no bezdin sitting there. It was only, he said it to him privately in the marketplace. Rashi says it wasn't in front of bezdin. So says Gemara, Aiva Tanya, we learned in a brayso, Amaloi ein b'dvarecha klum. There's no validity to what you're saying that Tavi went free. Shekfar hoidisa. Because you already admitted it, which implies that since he already admitted it, even if afterwards witness would come, it would still be pater, which is that is inconsistent with what that is consistent with what Rav Huna said. So the Gemara says, "My lav tanoihi." Isn't this a machlokes tanoim? Hi Tanad Amar Shekfar Ein Loch Edim, that the reason why Tavi won't go free is because there aren't witnesses. Savar Moide B'Knas V'Achkach Bo Edim Chayiv, that even though he admitted it, if afterwards Edim would come, you would have to free him. V'Hai Tanad Amar Shekfar Oidisa, that look, it's not going free because you already admitted. Savar Moide B'Knas V'Achkach Bo Edim Pater. That therefore, since you admitted it, even if afterwards Adam would come, he still wouldn't go free. It says in Raloy. The Kuli Alma, everybody holds like Rav Huna. That might have been knas, that once Marshall admits that he stole, even if achkach bo edim, even if afterwards Yitz and Irving come, potter. Ubahaka mifliyin. Hi Tomner, Dama Shikfar Ein Loch Edim. The Tana that says that there's no witnesses holds that because Rabbi Gamliel really didn't do a formal admission. Saver Chutza Bezdin. He only told Rabbi Yeshua outside of Bezdin, so it wasn't a formal admission, and therefore it's only because there aren't Eidim. But if there would be Eidim, since he didn't admit yet, the Eidim would cause him to go free. The Achton Adam Shekvar Haidisa holds that he told Rabbi Yeshua in Bezdin, Saver Bezdin Abba. And therefore, since it was in Bezdin, even if afterwards witnesses would come, he still wouldn't go free because Moed B'Knas V'Achkach Bo Eidim Potter. Now, as we welcome in Pesach Sigelman for our 27th Zoomer of the evening, on Pesach we are holding at the two dots, situated 9 lines from the top of Ayin Hei Amud Aleph. 9 lines from the top of Ayin Hei Amud Aleph. Itmar. Moed B'Knas V'Achkach Bo Eidim. That's Marshall admitted that he stole from Abi, and then witnesses come. Rav Amar Potter. That's what, like Rav Huna said it in the name of Rav, that Marshall is still Potter. V'Shmuel Amar Chayiv. Shmuel says no. Now that witnesses are here, then he has to pay the kefil. Amar Rav Abarai Hiloi. My time of the Rav. Why does Rav hold Moed B'Knas V'Achkach Bo Eidim is Potter? Because the pasuk says, "Im himotzei timotzei biyodei akneva." Now it says a double lashon, "Im himotzei timotzei," and we learn out "Im himotzei be'edim." If it was found out originally by edim, then timotzei b'dayan. Then Marshal has to pay the knas. Prat l'mashia es atzma. That excludes the case where the information originally came. If information already was found out by us from Marshall himself, he incriminated himself. Now the question is, we don't need this pasuk to tell me the basic halacha that Moed B'Knas is Potter, because that we know from Me'asher Yashion Elohim Nafka. The pasuk says only Asher Yashion Elohim, only one who is found guilty by the judge, not a Moed B'Knas. Elishmami na, the pasuk of Im Himotzei must be coming to tell me that Shmami na Moed B'Knas, that even if he admits to the knas, and afterwards the edim come, still Marshall is Potter, because it's only im himotzei be'edim, if it was found out originally by the witnesses. Shmuel says no, im himotzei timotzei, that pasuk we use for a different drasha. V'Shmuel amalach, if you remember, we said that the Torah says the din of kefil originally by where I gave Marshall a deposit and he claims it was stolen and then admitted that he has it. So that's where it says kefil. B'toyin tainas gainav. How do we know kefil by a ganav himself? So we said we know it from the double lashon of imimatzei simatzei. So V'Shmuel amalach ha'hu mebaylei l'ganav atzmai, that a ganav himself pays kefil, k'detan of Beichizkiah, like was taught in the Tan of Beichizkiah. So Eisvei Rav l'Shmuel, so Rav who holds Moed B'Knas V'Achkach Bo Eidim is Potter, asks Shmuel the following kasha. Now you could mamish see this happen to Marshall. I mean, you don't need any imagination. Even somebody who has a very weak imagination could visualize this without any problem. Ra Eidim shememash b'shimubad. Marshall sees Yitz and Irving creeping up on him. And he knows the jig is up. Right? He knows the jig is up. So he says, Ganafti, I stole, I did it. Avaloi tavachti v'loi mecharti. But I didn't slaughter it, I didn't sell it. I did it. Eina mishalem el keren. He only pays the principal because he was Moed B'Knas. Amalei, so he says to him, now the Gemara assumes that this is talking about where afterwards Yitz and Irving testified, still Marshall doesn't have to pay. So you see clearly, like Rav, that Moed B'Knas V'Achikach Bo Eidim is pater. Amalei, so he says, no, that's not what happened. When Marshall said, I did it, Yitz and Irving left. They didn't bother testifying. They backed away. But if they would have testified, then Marshall would have to pay, Shmuel maintains. Says the Gemara, Bahamid Tani, say for Rabbi Elazar, Reb Shimon Aimer, Yavo Eidim V'Ya'idu, let the witnesses come and testify. That implies that the Tana Kama holds that even if they testify, Marshall is pater. Michlal, the Tana Kama savalai. So Shmuel says, okay, so then what's the tzimis? You're right, the Tana Kama holds Moed B'Knas is pater. But I hold like Rabbi Eliezer and Yaakov, who says let Irving and Yitz come and testify, and then Marshall will be chayiv. The Amalei Shmuel, Lavi could Rabbi Eliezer, Reb Shimon, the Kavasi, that holds like me, that Moed B'Knas V'Achikach Bo Eidim chayiv, and not Amri could Rabbi Eliezer, Reb Shimon. So the Gemara says you're right. L'Shmuel, according to Shmuel, Vadei Tanoi, that the Tana Kama holds that even if Irving and Yitz would come, Marshall is pater, because Moed B'Knas V'Achikach Bo Eidim is pater, while Rabbi Elazar, Reb Shimon says let Irving and Yitz still come and testify, and Marshall would be chayiv. L'Rav, but according to Rav, who holds that Moed B'Knas V'Achikach Bo Eidim pater, mi lema Tanoi, are we going to say it's a machloikas Tanoi? Says the Gemara, no. Amalach Rav, Anod da Amrei Afilu Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon. The reason why Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon says in this case, let Marshall, let Irving and Yitz come and testify, is because Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon holds that Marshall's admission is a tainted admission. It wasn't a sincere admission. He only did the admission because he was afraid, because he saw them coming. So that's not a sincere admission, as you can see written all over his face. Says the Gemara, Ad kan like come Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon Hasam, Elamishim de Kamoide Machmas B'Yesusa de Eidim. Because the only reason why Marshall made the admission is because he was frightened and because he saw Yitz and Irving coming. Aval hacha de meidim ha'atzmai, but in a case where he admits on his own, afilu Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon maida, that even if afterwards witness comes, Marshall would still be pater. Amar Rav Amnuna. Now the Gemara talks about the issue that I told you about in Akdam. I know all of you were eagerly waiting for it, and that is Moed B'Knas only where Marshall at least is machayev himself something, because when he admits that he stole from Abi, then he has to at least pay Abi the principal. So even if he admits he stole and he slaughtered it, he has to pay the principal. But if first he admits that he stole, so he pays him the principal, and now he admits that he slaughtered it, then he's going scot-free from everything. Maybe there we don't say Moed B'Knas pater. So let's see. I want to thank Hashem. I'm feeling a lot better tonight. And I want to thank my personal physician, Dr. Yitzi Kurtzer, and my Yedid Nefesh, who I called him up yesterday and I said to him, listen, I need to have a cough medicine, and I want a cough medicine where the suppressant doesn't cause the stuff to go down to the chest, and then you can get pneumonia. So he gave me it's a new type of cough medicine, which really did the trick, and I slept last night. So he was a shliach neman. So thank you Hashem, and thank you Yitzi, and of course thank you the schus of the entire olam over here. Now, Amar Rav Amnuna, Mistavra milse de Rav. It's reasonable the position of Rav, but Omer ganafti, where Marshall said I stole, ubo edim sheganav potter. Why? Because shari chayiv atzmai bekeren. He already made himself liable to the principal. Aval ama loy ganafti, if he says I didn't steal, ubo edim sheganav, and witnesses came and he did steal. V'chazer v'amar tovachti u'macharti, and then he confessed to the tzvich and the mechira, whereby he's not mechayiv himself anything. Ubo edim shetavach u'macher, they're chayiv. Why? Shari potter atzmai beklum. When he said, I admit that I slaughtered and sold it, he wouldn't be chayiv anything, because he already paid the principal. So there, if afterwards Eidim come and mechayiv him, even Rav holds he's chayiv. Amar Rava, so now, this was not said by Rav himself, but it was said by one of Rav's disciples. Rav Amnuna, who was one of his disciples, made this distinction in Rav. So Amar Rava kapachti l'sabe debei Rav. I will cut off the support of the elders of the Academy of Rav, because I'll show you a case that we say Moed B'Knas Potter, even where there's no liability at all. Rabbi Gamliel Poiter Atzmai B'Klum Hava. Rabbi Gamliel exempted himself from everything because he admitted that he blinded the eyes of Tavi. V'Kamalei Rav Chisda Rav Huna, and Rav Chisda said to Rav Huna that what do you mean? Moed B'Knas is Potter. V'loi Kamishani like, and he didn't answer. He could have said that Rav parted himself from everything. Why didn't he say that difference? However, Itmar Nami, there is this distinction of Rav Hamnuna is taught also by Reb Chia bar Abba in the name of the great Rabbi Yochanan. Itmar Nami Reb Chia bar Abba Rabbi Yochanan ganafti. If he said I stole, sheganav potter, because he was mechayiv himself the principal. Shari chayiv atzma bekeren. Avalama loy ganafti. Ubo edim sheganav. Because of amet tavachti umacharti, I slaughtered and I sold. Ubo edim shetavach umacher, and witnesses come and say that he slaughtered and sold. Chayiv. Why? Shari pater atzma meklum, because after he already paid the principal, when he admitted to the tvicha mechira, he was not mechayiv himself anything. And Amar Rav Ashi masnisan ubraisa nami deka. The Mishnah and the Braisa also implies this distinction. Why? Masnisan Ditanan Ganav al Pishnayim V'Tavach u'Macher al Pi'ed Echad. Remember, this was a case that Marshall stole with the testimony of Yitz and Irving. But then he slaughtered and sold it just al Pi Irving, or al Pi Atzmai, or by his own admission. So the din is Mishalim Tashlumei Kefil, because for that you have two witnesses. Ve'ein Mishalim Tashlumei Arba v'Chamisha. But Marshall doesn't have to pay Dal V'Hei because there was only one witness, or it was only by his own admission. So the Gemara says, Lamali de Tani Ganav al Pishnayim. Why does it say Ganav al Pishnayim? Lisnei Ganav v'Tavach u'Macher al Pi'ed Echad. Why doesn't it bunch it up together? If he stole, slaughtered, and sold on the testimony of one witness, or al Pi Atzmai, or on his own admission, Eina Mishalem el Karen. Why does it first say that he stole with two witnesses? Ella, says the Gemara, it must be the following distinction. Ella lav hokamash malan. Ganav al Pishnayim, if Marshall stole with the testimony of Irving and Yitz. v'tovach al pi eid echad, and then slaughtered it only by Irving's testimony, or al pi atzmai, or by his own admission, there, who delay mechayev atzmai bekeren, there, excuse me, let's get the right guess over here. There, delay mechayev atzmai bekeren, there where he's not being mechayev himself when he admits just to the tvicha or mechira, there al pi atzmai dumya de'ed echad. There his admission is similar to if it's one witness. Ma al pi eid echad. Just like in the case where Irving testified. We say Marshall is only exempt if it's Irving alone. But if there's another witness that comes afterwards, Yitz, ki asa eid echad mitztarf ba'adei, if another witness, Yitz, comes and joins Irving, then mechayev, then Marshall would be chayev for the tvicha mechira. Al pi atzmai nami, also where he admits to the tvicha mechira, ki asu edim, if witnesses would come, mechayev, he would be chayev, because there we hold that since when he admitted to the tvicha mechira, he's not being mechayev himself anything. If afterwards edim come, he would chayev. But in the case where it's all one shot, where he stole, slaughtered, and sold by his own testimony, there, if afterwards witnesses would come, he wouldn't be chayiv, because with his own haidah, he's chayiv for the original Karen. The chayiv atzma b'Karen, there lo yamrinon al pi atzma dumya al pi eid echad. There we don't say where he admits it by himself, it's similar to if there's only one witness. No, if there's only one witness and the witness is joined with a second witness, he would have to pay. But if he admitted and then afterwards two witnesses come, he wouldn't have to pay, because since he admitted to the stealing and slaughtering in one shot, he admitted to something which he was mechuyev himself to pay the Karen, and therefore if even afterwards the witnesses would come, he would be potter. Now, as I welcome in Yeshua Shmuel and Abe Arbach, who was waiting there because I didn't pick up my head, I'm sorry, Abe, and I'm sorry, Yeshua Shmuel, that I kept you in the waiting room. I hope the magazines there are good. I put some mishpachas and amis there.
I left some bourbon in there for them too.
Yeah, they're as available as my amis. One more person, and we have 30. Look at that. Get on the phone, call Mark, tell him he's the 30th Zoomer.
Something yesterday, don't worry.
Yesterday you weren't even here.
Correct. I was supposed to be at a chasna.
I'm telling you, you're getting very sketchy, Marshall.
I'm trying to play the part.
And Stephen was very upset last night. I mean, last night, Stephen, you should send him something, a free dinner to somewhere or something, because last night Stephen really took a fall because of you.
Oh boy.
But anyway, right? Doesn't he look like he's in a room over there ready for interrogation? Doesn't you see that? That was after last night, boy. But anyway,
T-shirt's the same color as my T-shirt I had.
Yeah. I want to point something out over here, which I realized that I wasn't clear about. And the truth of the matter is, I really wasn't clear about it in my own mind. But I make it clear now. It makes no difference in the law of Moed B'Knas itself, that's Potter, whether it's the original Haidah, whether it costs you something or it doesn't. If Marshall would be Moed that he stole, and afterwards he would come and he was Moed that he slaughtered, he would be potter from paying for the slaughter, even though he doesn't cost himself anything. That din of Moed B'Knas is true. The only nafkamina is if afterwards Eidim come. And the point of bringing up Rab Gamliel with the slave, with Tavi, is not that there was a question if the slave would go free when he admitted that he knocked out his eye, even though it's not costing him anything. The only question over there, the implication is that if even afterwards witnesses would come, the witnesses would not change something, and therefore we had a question. But if you hold that if he's not admitting to anything that costs him, then when witnesses come afterwards, he would be chayiv to pay. So the distinction over here, which Rav Amnuna says, and which we say is implicit from the Mishnah, is only that if you're moided to something which doesn't cost you anything, and then witnesses would come, then even Rav holds that you would be chayiv to pay. And now the Gemara is going to show this, where we know this. Any questions on this, by the way? Okay.
A question I have is about the case where he saw the Edom coming and then he admitted it right away. So I understand why that morally is different, but the fact is he still admitted it, whether the Edom were going to testify afterwards and it disappeared or anything else. I'm not sure why that makes a big difference.
Well, I mean, you don't hear the logic? The logic is that
I understand the logic.
Okay, so then you understand the Gemara. The Gemara is saying that halachically that makes a difference because the admission wasn't sincere, which you can understand since we're talking about Marshall. Now,
Marshall, insincere confession. Just to have something clear in my head, I may be totally unaware of. When you said Marshall saw them, caught them red-handed, and it wasn't a sincere confession, is that because when you confess, there's an element of shame involved that is thought to be compensatory, like financially almost, right?
Well, not financially, but yes, it is somewhat of a compensatory nature to the Rebbeinu Shalom.
And when he's insincere, it means he probably really didn't regret doing it.
That's correct. You got Marshall. You pegged him 100%. Now,
Thanks, Philippe.
no, he's just rubbing it in. That's okay. I understand. Now, so let's see the Brisa. And if you lost the place because of all the chit chat, we're 4 lines above the wide lines on Daf Ayin Hamid Beis. Another not so easy daf, Rabbi say. It's we're really getting our money's worth in this parak. It's really something. Brisa, the Tanya. Now we're going to get a little bit. We're going to get a little bit more technical about this business that Philippe just brought up, where we saw Irving and Yitz coming. You know, we're gonna get a little technical over here. Is Irving still here? Oh yeah, there he is. I don't know why the boxes are moving around on me over here. We're waiting for our 30th Zoomer, the Tanya.
Daf Yomi Squares.
The Tanya. Raw Edim Shemamash Mishinubon. Like we said, Marshall saw Yitz and Irving creeping up, so he said, "Okay, I did it, ganafti. But I didn't do anything more. I didn't slaughter. I didn't sell it." Eina mishalem elakeren. Says the Gemara, Lama li lemisni. Why does it have to teach? The Amar ganafti avaloi tavachti v'loy Macharti. Nisne, let it teach and said, let's get the correct guess over here. Lamalina Misne, why does it say Ganafti? I did it. Avaloi Tavachti, Valoi Macharti. Nisne, let it say Ganafti, I stole. Oi Tavachti Umacharti. Or I slaughtered and I sold it. Why does it say? Because what's it teaching you over here? It's teaching you. I want to see the Gersa earlier. 1 second. In other words, if at this point the Tana Kama is arguing on Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon and saying that even though Marshall saw Irving and Yitz creeping up on him and he admitted to it, he's potter, and we don't say that his Haidah is tainted by the fact that Yitz and Irving were creeping up on him. So why does it only say that he's potter if he said Ganafti? Why doesn't it say also he's potter if he said Tavachti or Macharti? So let's see it inside. Ramali lemisnei v'amar Ganafti, he says, I stole it. Avaloi Tavachti v'loi Macharti. Why did you have to give that a color? That he said, but I didn't steal it, I didn't sell it. Nisnei, let him say, Macharti, Ganafti, Oy Tavachti, Oy Macharti. Let it say, I stole it, or I slaughtered it, or I sold it. Either way, he's going to be potter. And we say the fact that the witnesses were creeping up on him doesn't taint the admission. Eloha kamashmon taima da amar Ganafti. It's only then the potter. That even if witnesses come, he's potter. Avalamar loy ganafti. If he says, I didn't steal. Ubo edim shaganav. And witnesses come and say that he stole. And then he went ahead and admitted to slaughtering it. And now when he admitted that he slaughtered or sold it, it's not costing him anything because he already paid the kefil, so now he wouldn't pay anything more. He's not mechayiv himself with anything. Chayiv. Alma hodod the tvicha, that the admission of the slaughtering lav hodahi. Now, here we have to see what this means. Right. Right. You know, if you look in the art scroll, at first glance, it implies that the admission to the tvicha is not an admission at all. And he wouldn't be chayiv even if witnesses don't come. But that's not what it means. As the art scroll makes clear to clarify it. El alma hidod tvicha lav hidahi. Evidently admitting to the slaughter in such case where his admission does not make him liable to anything does not constitute an admission that absolves him from the fine, even when witnesses subsequently come and testify. It would absolve him from the fine if witnesses don't come afterwards, but it doesn't absolve him from the fine if witnesses come. So the Gemara says, No. This is really, really technical. The Gemara says, Imrei loy. No, maybe it's not a proof to that. But rather, he gufa kamash malan. It's teaching us, the kavan da amar ganafti, since he said, I stole it, afal gav da amar loy tavachti v'loy macharti, even though he said, I didn't slaughter it and I didn't sell it, ubo ve'edim shetavach u'macher. Listen to this Kiddush. Now Marshall is going to like this one. Marshall's going to like this because, it's right, it goes right with his life of skullduggery. What happens over here is that Marshall admitted that he stole. But he said, I didn't slaughter it, and I didn't sell it. Then Irving and Yitz comes and says he did slaughter it and sell it. Says the Gemara doesn't pay. You know why? Here he didn't even admit he doesn't pay. You know why? Because it wouldn't be Dalet V'Hei, it would be Gimel V'Dalet. Because since he admitted to stealing it, he doesn't pay kefil. It's only Dalet V'Hei together with the kefil. But since he didn't, it's not Dalet V'Hei, it's Gimel and Dalet. There's no such thing as Gimel and Dalet. So Marshall gets off the hook. Let's see it inside. He gufa kamash malan. The kavan the amar ganafti, since he admitted that he stole it, afal gav the amar loy tavachti v'loy macharti. I didn't slaughter it. I didn't sell it. And then Yitz and Irving came and say that he stole and slaughtered and sold it. Potter. My timer. What? Why? Because Tashlume Abba Chamisha Merachmana, the Torah says Abba and Chamisha, V'loy Tashlume, it says Chamisha Merachmana, V'loy Tashlume Abba, and not Tashlume Abba. Remember, it's Chamisha if it was a short together with the kefil. But he doesn't pay kefil because he admitted to stealing it. He was made of a knas. So therefore it would be 4. And by a set, it's 4, and here it would be 3. So there he would be potter, even though he didn't admit to the slaughtering and selling it, and Adam came and he slaughtered and sold it, but since he admitted to the stealing, so he doesn't pay the kefil, so instead of Dalet V'Hei, it's Gimel and Dalet, and there's no payment of Gimel and Dalet. Now, Lema Kitanoi. Says the Gemara, let's say that this machloikis over here, whether if witnesses come after the admission, if you're chayiv, if you're not admitting to paying anything, is a machloikis tanoi. What's the machloikis tanoi? So, if let's say Irving and Yitz testify that Marshall stole, which by now everybody should remember that, right?
What do we even need Adam for? What's the chiddush with that?
Only to give Yitz and Irving practice. What a silly question.
I'm always guilty. Who needs witnesses?
Some reputation, Marshall. Let me tell you.
Yeah, that's okay. This is okay. It's only in front of a million Heimish. So anyway, so again, Yitz and Irving say that Marshall stole, and are reputable. And our reputable Adim, Mel and Aaron, say that Marshall slaughtered or sold it. So again, Yitz and Irving said that Marshall stole. And Mel and Aaron say that he slaughtered it or sold it. Huzmu Eidei Geneva. Oh. If we remove Yitz and Irving, witnesses came and say they were in Acapulco. Now, obviously, if there's no witnesses that Marshall stole it, then Mel and Aaron's testimony that he slaughtered and sold it falls by the wayside, because it might be his. So Eidei Shabbat L'Miksasa Bat L'Kula. So Huzmu Eidei Tvicha. In such a case, what about if it's the other way around? If witnesses come and say that Mel and Aaron were in Acapulco, so therefore there's no testimony that Marshall slaughtered. So they wanted to cost Marshall extra, but the testimony of Yitz and Irving that Marshall stole it stays. So who Mishalim Tashlumei Kefil? Marshall has to pay to AB the Kefil. The Hain, who wanted to cost Marshall to pay for the extra 3 or 2, the Hain Mishalim Tashlumei Shlosh. So that's Posh. These two halachas are easy shmizi. Let's just say them outside again. If Irving and Yitz said that Marshall stole from AB, and Aaron and Mel say Marshall slaughtered it, if witnesses come and say that Yitz and Irving were in Acapulco, then Marshall's not chayav anything. The whole thing falls apart, because if there's no stealing, so then there's no dollar v'hei, because Marshall could have been slaughtering his own. On the other hand, in the event that witnesses come and say that Aaron and Mel were in Acapulco, so Marshall has to pay A.B. Kefil, because Yitz and Irving testified that he stole it, and Mel and Aaron have to pay the Gimel or Dalid. Actually, it would be Beis or Gimel. They would have to pay the Beis or Gimel to Marshall because they wanted to cost him extra by their testimony of Tavach U'Machar. So that fits in very good. Sumchis Amru. Sumchis comes along over here, and he doesn't seem to speak to what they were talking about. Sumchis Amru, Hey Mishalmim Tashlumei Kefil. The witnesses have to pay Kefil. V'hu Mishalm Tashlumei Shloish L'Par Shnayim L'Ayil. And Marshall has to pay to AB the 3 if it's an ox, and 2 if it's a ram. So what Sumchis is talking about? Ahai koi Sumchis. Ilaim Reisha, if it's on the Reisha, where Irving and Yitz testified that Marshall stole, and Aaron and Mel testified that Marshall slaughtered it, and Irving and Yitz were found to be Muzim, were found to be in Acapulco, then what do you mean there's payment of 2 or 3? The rest of the testimony falls apart. Leslie, the Sumchis Eidei Shabbat L'Miksasa Bat L'Kula. The Ela Seifa, it's on the last case, where we were Muzim, Aaron and Mel, about the Tvicha. Shaper Kamri Rabbanan. Rabbanan say very good. So since Irving and Yitz's testimony of the theft was still intact, Hu Misham Tashlumei Kefil, Marshall has to pay Kefil to Abi. V'hei Misham Tashlumei Shloisha, and Mel and Aaron, who wanted to unlawfully be Mechayev Marshall, have to pay him the payment of Tvicha Mechira. Ella, it must be that Sumchis and the Rabbanan are arguing about something else. Thanks. really making this difficult. Sumchus is responding not to what the Tanna Kama was talking about, but responding to something else. What's he responding to? Boy, I'm telling you, the Gemara is really demanding a lot from us over here. Ella, but remember what I said. For this, you get a lot of schar. A lot of schar for trying to hold cup and keep it all in your mind and doing this to learn Tyrus Hashem. It should keep our mind sharp till the coming of Mashiach.
The sweat of our brow and learning should compensate for the sweat of our body, labor.
There he is. Philippe, the poster child for this year, he's literally a Cal Ripken Jr. when it comes to this year, not missing a year no matter what. He puts Cal Ripken to shame. Ella,
for pouring the bench.
Ella, it's your turn a new leaf, Philippe. You turn a new leaf. How many out? What was Cal Ripken's?
130, I think, but I forget.
Does anybody know?
Oh, Blue Garrett, that's all I know.
Come on, Ruvain must know. No.
It's not hockey. Who knows? 2130, right? His Iron Man. What was it?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I'm going to look it up. All right, no.
All right. Ella, milsa achrita ikebenai. There's a different argument here between Rabbanan and Sumchus, and it goes as follows. Kigain de asu beitrei, where what happened is Irving and Yitz comes and Imre le ganafta. They said, Marshall, you stole. Abalahu, he said to them Marshall says, I cannot tell a lie. Ganafti, I stole. V'tovachti umacharti. I slaughtered and I sold it, So he confessed to everything. He said, but not in front of you bums. He's getting the last laugh. He says, you guys are liars. Miu loy bifneichem ganafti. I didn't do it in front of you. V'aisei sadeh, and he brings Mel and Aaron, deloy ba'apayu ganav, that it wasn't in the presence of Yitz and Irving, because Mel and Aaron say that on that day Yitz and Irving were with them in a Yarchei Kala in Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, he says, I did it, but it wasn't in front of Yitz and Irving. So now, Abi is a little bit confused. So where is he holding? So Abi looks for other witnesses, and he finds Berish and Philippe. And Berish and Philippe give testimony that Marshall stole, slaughtered, or sold. V'aisi balabayis sadeh v'asidu be'degana v'tovach b'umach. So, the Gemara wants to say now that everybody agrees. You know what? I should paint you this picture again because it's such a confusing picture. Irving and Yitz come first and say that Marshall stole from Abi. They didn't talk anything about slaughtering. They just said that Marshall stole from Abi. Marshall comes along and confesses to the store. He says, I stole and I slaughtered and I had a tailgate party by the hockey game. I did it. But not in front of these bums. They weren't there. And he brings Mel and Aaron that testify that at that time Yitz and Irving were in a Yarchei. Abi then goes ahead and finds Berish and Philippe, who testify that Marshall stole it and slaughtered it.
There's a conspiracy.
So now, everybody holds that Marshall's admission to the stealing is not sincere. Because witnesses came and said he stole, even though he was mazing those witnesses. But everybody holds that that admission is not sincere, and he doesn't have moed b'knas on that. The question is, what about his admission to having slaughtered it? So, and that's the machlokes. Let's see it inside. Says the Gemara. They're arguing about Marshall's admission to slaughtering it. The Rabbanan Savrei Afal Gav Dohidod de Gneva, even though the confession about the stealing it, Machmas Edim Hu de Kamaida, was prompted by Irving and Yitz coming, and therefore it's not sincere. Haidod de Tvicha Haidai, but the confession about the slaughtering is Haidod Upat. V'Sumche Saver, Sumche says, Kaven Haidod de Gneva Machmas Edim Hu de Kamaida. So we say that he came clean already, and it wasn't a sincere Haidod. The Tvicha Lav Haidod. V'Hanak Edim Kamai, and these first witnesses, that means Irving and Yitz, Da'azminu, that were found to be Muslim because they say Marshall stole and they weren't there at the time. So they pay the kefil. Mishalmin Tashlum kefil. They pay the kefil to Marshall, and Marshall gives it to Abi. Vahu, and he, because we say his confession, according to Sumkas, about the tficha is not sincere, Mishalm Shloish Lapar, if it was an ox, it would be 3, or Shnayim La'ayel, and if it was Biseh, it's 2. It says Ravaka, and one more piece over here. I'm telling you, this Gemara is really something. Says the Gemara, Amar Ravaka Breid Ravika Loi. The Kuli Alma, everybody holds, Haidad the Tvicha Lav Haidai. The confession about the slaughter is also not a sincere confession. Since witnesses are already coming to court and he knows the jig's up, none of his confession is sincere. But the question is, he wouldn't be chayiv except for the fact that the two witnesses, Berish and Philippe, come and say that he slaughtered it. Right? He wouldn't be chayiv. And says the Gemara, Ela be'eda shi'i ati yochel la'azima kamifli. Here we're talking about witnesses that cannot be muzam. We know that you have to be able to declare the witnesses hazam. That they, for this, by the way, this is a din in Makis, that if Irving and Yitz give testimony, but they say, we know that he did it, but we don't remember the day and the hour that he did it, we don't accept the testimony. Because then we can't make them Eidim Zayimim. Because we can't say, but you were in Acapulco that day, because they're not saying what day and what time it was. Such testimony is no good. That's called Eidu She'i Ata Yochel La'azima. Here it's interesting that when Marshall, so let's see what the case is. Kegain da Asu Sadeh V'imre le ganafta. Witnesses say that you stole. V'amalu ganafti v'tavachti umacharti. I stole, I slaughtered, I sold it. Mi'oloi b'fneichem nafti. I didn't do it in front of you. I didn't do it in front of you. Ela b'fnei pliny u'pliny. I did it rather in front of Mel and Philippe. V'aisi sadeh v'asminu, and he brought witnesses, Berish and Philippe, and he brought witnesses, that's Mel and Aaron, Deloy ba'payu gonav, that he didn't steal it in the presence of Irving and Yitz. They were. They were in Yachekala. V'asu ploini u'ploini v'asidu bei, and Berish and Philippe came and testified the gun of a tavach. So ubahaka mifligi, and this is what they're arguing about. The Rabbanan hold that we can't accept Berish's and Philippe's testimony. Why? It's edus that can't be muzam. But because what are we going to say? That we're going to bring witnesses that it didn't happen, and that they weren't there. But Marshall admitted that he did it in front of them. And since he admitted in front of them, we can't be mazim, because even if we bring witnesses, hoidas baldin k'mei edom dam, and he admitted that he did it in front of them. And since we can't accept their testimony, so Marshall is going to be pater. He only has to pay the Karen. He's going to be pater. Again, havle edus shiati yochel azima, the kol edus shiati yochel azima lo yavi edus. V'sumcha says this is not a case of edus shiati yochel azima. V'sumcha saver edus shiati yochel azima havi edus. In this case, the testimony of Philippe and Berish that he slaughtered it is accepted. It's not a good edus. Says the Gemara, no, that's that's where we don't know when it happened. They said that Chatzkel killed somebody, we don't know when. So if they're saying we don't know when, we can't be mazing them, because we can't say that day you were with us in Acapulco. The lekale does klal. Aval hacha, but over here, Marshall's saying that they saw it strengthens the testimony. Siyuahu de Messiah. The only thing is that we have to figure out, Sumcha says that Marshall would be chayiv to pay. What's the lashon of Sumchas? Sumchas says that Marshall has to pay the kefil, and Marshall has to pay the kefil. Let's see, 1 second. Sumcha say mehein mishalmin tashlumei kefil, v'hu mishalmin tashlumei shloishel. Right. Because why hey mishalmin tashlumei kefil, that's Irving and Yitz. Because remember, Irving and Yitz said that Marshall stole it, and Marshall said, I did it, but not in front of them. So Irving and Yitz wanted to be mechayiv the kefil. So they have to give to Marshall the kefil. Marshall admitted that he stole and slaughtered. Came along Berish and Philippe and said that he stole and slaughtered. Now, we said that Marshall's admission about the Tvicha Mechira was insincere because he did it only because of the witnesses, and therefore he's chayiv. The Rabbanan say that he's potter because they hold that what Berish and Philippe say is Eidushi Ati Yochel Azima because of the fact that Marshall admitted that he did it in front of them. So therefore it can't be Muslim because he does Baldin K'mei Edom Dami. The opinion of Sumchas is that their testimony is good. This doesn't have the chesaron of Eidushi Ati Yochel Azima because of the fact that, to the contrary, Marshall's saying that they saw it strengthens them. It's only an Eidushi Ati Yochel Azima if we don't know what day and what hour it is. Wow, that's a very hard piece of Gemara. Does anybody want to venture a question?
I have a comment, not a question. I think I have a riot that Gamaliel never was able to free his Evid because the Mishnah says that if the Shmeis Tabi Abdu keep a low of Tanchumin. They asked how it's so. Apparently, he never freed him.
Well, that's clear from the Gemara. Rabbi Yeshua said he couldn't do it.
Oh, okay, but
yeah, it's clear. It's clear from the Gemara. That's your only comment?
I have to. In order to understand this last thing, I would have to go over it. I didn't quite get it.
Rabbi, if you make an admission, a confession like this, are you allowed to redo it in front of Beis Din?
No. Okay, Rabbi, say we're going to now do the Mishnah Yaimis, and
question.
well, yes.
Could you, Rabbi, go over the calculation? I'm confused how you get to Gimel and Dalet. How these Knesset from Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet? Hey,
Well, it's simple. If you steal and slaughter, so by a sheep you pay kefil plus 2 more, and that's how it's Dalet. And if you steal and slaughter an ox, you pay the kefil plus 3 more, and that's how it's 5.
The kefil is the Karen is I have to pay him what it's worth.
Right.
Then kefil I have to pay him 2 times.
No, kefil includes the carrot. Kefil means the original plus 1 more time. And then there's 2 more by a sheep and 3 more by an ox.
So when we say he has to pay Gimel and Dalet instead of Dalet and Hay, what does that mean?
Where does it say Gimel and Dalet? It says Beis and Gimel. Shloisha l'par, shnayim la'ayil. We had another case where if you would be exempt from the kefil, so then it would only be Gimel and Dalet and not Dalet v'Hei, because you would pay the original and the other 2 and not the kefil. Okay, now we're going to learn the Mishnah Yaimis, Rabbi Isai. Also, if anybody still wants to sponsor the Chumash here this week, for Bo, 718-916-3100, RMMWSI @AOL.com. Bava Kama